What's going on, everyone? It's Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com, and we're here with another episode of the Morning Joint Podcast, joined by co-host Dani WestCoast. How you living today, Dani?
I'm living very well. My voice is a little hoarse because I have had a very crazy weekend, which we'll get into later. So don't mind me if I sound kind of crazy this morning.
A little raspy, like you're a jazz lounge singer or something, man. I don't quite hear it, but I guess that's what happens when you're out there in the wilderness, smoking joints and blunts, man. So we got a couple topics in the music and cannabis realm. We're starting off with the recap of this year's Emerald Cup Harvest Ball, which Dani attended over the weekend. Did you drive up there, Dani?
So I actually flew.
Okay.
It was really fun. I flew into San Francisco and drove into Santa Rosa. So the Emerald Cup is traditionally held in Santa Rosa. They have been having a couple more events out in LA. For example, last year they did have the award show down in LA, which they're going to have again in May. So the Emerald Cup is the website touts it as a 19-year tradition. The emeraldcup.com website touts it as a 19-year tradition. It's been held in Santa Rosa for as long as I can remember. And this was actually my first time attending. The Emerald Cup is a really special event because it highlights craft farmers and small farmers in the Northern California region. Now, we have to remember that these kinds of farmers are the trailblazers and they really are the backbone of the community. So not only do bigger brands get a chance to actually interact with some of these small farmers, but consumers can buy directly from brands and from farms there. The really, really, really cool part about Emerald Cup is if you let's say you have a genetics that you just love. Let's say you have a cultivator that you just love. This actually gives consumers access to those coveted rare genetics, clones, seeds, things like that. I actually noticed that there were way longer lines for clones and seeds than there were for some of the actual products. So that was really, really dope to see. And not only did they have like brands showcasing, they had musical performances. I know, Mitch, you mentioned that maybe 2, 3 episodes ago, some of the
Mhm.
musical performances. They had E40. I don't think Fleetwood Mac ended up performing. I know I was getting down during E40 and they ended up kicking like everyone out after that. It was the very end of the night. In addition to the actual Emerald Cup brands, performers, there are panelists too. A lot of the panels that I viewed were on psychedelics and they were on social equity and how small farmers are leaning on some of these equity groups because a lot of these small farmers, they were just growing cannabis and now they have to be small business owners with all of that extra acumen going into it. So it was really cool actually to see how open a lot of these farmers were to help and outside input, things like that. Because how there's a lot of tension, I guess, sometimes in the cannabis community.
Mhm.
People kind of put it's like crabs in a barrel almost, where you're pulling others down just because maybe you're not doing as well. We pull each other down. So it was really cool to see this part of the community be lifted up. And it was a great reminder that the power is in the plant. The farther and farther we get from the plant, all this crazy stuff like the hemp designer drugs, like all of this crazy kind of stuff happens the farther and farther we get away from the actual plant. So um, events like Emerald Cup, where we are bringing it back to its roots, are very cool. It was definitely Northern California, more hippie vibe, rain boots, jackets, definitely not a fashion show, but there were still some people like turning up with looks and everything. So definitely a multifaceted show. Definitely great if you're interested in the actual plant and getting some cool genetics to try to even grow on your own or whatnot. So I actually ended up having a great time. My expectation was kind of in the middle. I'm used to, B2B events, business to business. So this one was definitely more business to consumer, but it was dope to see the camaraderie in the community. And some of the after parties were really lit too. I ended up at a little mini Northern California rave. So that was pretty fun. So just a total adventure. I highly recommend if you missed Emerald Cup, they are having the awards show down here in Los Angeles in May. So check back for updates with that. But definitely don't miss out on the next one.
You feel like it was a good mix because obviously, like you said, it's kind of designed for, not designed, but very centered around highlighting craft, legacy, and small farmers. But obviously, to put on events at this scale and where cannabis is shifting, it takes sponsorships, big business. Do you feel like that tension between big business and small business was there, or it definitely was more rooted in the camaraderie, just kind of in the vibes of walking the venue?
So I would say this was actually a little more rooted in camaraderie. Geez, I do want to shout out State House. Actually, one of my homies works there, and what they were doing is they're a big, they're a big chain of retailers and everything. So they're a big business, but they have been partnering with the small farms. They have a whole initiative to bring those small craft farmers into the stores. So I thought that was such a unique play. And yeah, it definitely helped build that camaraderie, seeing that they actually want these small farmers to be in the stores. Side note, it's very interesting too that there are more like equity brands up north and they're more equity retailers down here in SoCal. So kind of saw that mix too. But that's definitely just kind of a side note to explore later down the road, but definitely more of a sense of camaraderie than division.
Yeah, and that is interesting to think about because definitely think about social equity in LA definitely seems more rooted in dispensary. I know up north, I know like Bay Area, I know they had a fair amount of dispensaries, but yeah, definitely more brands. So I wonder if that just happened to go like county or city, like the way they allocated the licenses. That might be kind of how we or why that is, but that's definitely an interesting take.
Mm-hmm.
Man, well, I know I missed it. We try and get through. We try and get to as many events as we can. But this one, just I chimed in on Tim Blake, founder of the Emerald Cups, post on LinkedIn the other day, and said I'd love to be out there, but I'm staying my ass at home until the new year. But yeah, it's sad that we missed it. But yeah, sounds like a great time. I love Santa Rosa. I love NorCal, and I love the vibe because you really get like in Santa Rosa, like you said, you flew into San Francisco. It's close to the Bay Area, so you still get like the Bay Area and the flavors, but then also you get a lot of the Emerald Triangle and the outdoor farmers, and then obviously your take on it, the fashion show. If you live in LA, if you go to cannabis events in LA, there's a lot of exotic cars and designer clothing. When you go to NorCal, you get into the woods, man. There's a lot more farmers out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Man, next up on our list. So we're still dropping interviews from MJ BizCon. We interviewed Chris. Man, I'm gonna butcher his last name, Campagna. Man, I on the interview I just interviewed him, introduced him as Chris. I didn't try on the last name. My apologies, Chris, if I messed it up. Of True Terpenes. True Terpenes is one of the leading groups selling terpenes on the market. They're located in Hillsboro, Oregon. They do both botanical terps and cannabis-derived terps and blends of both. I've heard some great things about their company, and then a lot of things personally about Chris from my friend Colin over Colin Landforce from the industry. And so it was nice to meet up with Chris in person. He's been coming up in conversations periodically over the last couple months, and I stopped by their booth. I recognized his face from his LinkedIn photo, the little circle. So, got to go up to him, interview him on the spot. Really appreciate you, Chris. It was the end of the day. Joey was trying to push him to be like, hey, we could do this tomorrow. And I was like, nah, man, your number's getting called. Step up. Let's get it. And he jumped up. But really great conversation. We didn't cover in the interview, but Chris has a crazy story. I mean, he's practically paralyzed. And was told something, he would never regain some functions. And he really just, took that challenge head on. And cannabis is one of the big reasons he was able to move through that. And so now he's built this business. And it was funny talking to him. Some people think where their business is at, think of him as just a suit, but he's a cannabis consumer himself. If you watch our interview, you definitely, just the lingo he talks about, he's with the shits. But he just has a personal story very, very close to cannabis and medical cannabis, which inspired True Terpenes and exploring what terpenes do from the medicinal benefit side, but obviously moving to the recreational side, consumers love terpenes in general. And so, Danny, I'm kind of curious your thoughts on this. So a lot of that interview was centered around cannabis-derived terps and botanical terps. You know, I think any connoisseur is going to skew towards cannabis-derived terps and be anti-botanical terps. But when you look at the market, there is clearly a huge consumer demand for botanical terps. So I think, you know, me and Chris were talking, whether it was on camera or off, that there's this kind of, you know, some people think, oh, it should be only cannabis derived, forget botanical terps. But when there's so much consumer demand, it kind of makes sense to service both markets. So I'm kind of curious your thoughts on botanical versus cannabis derived when it comes to terpenes.
Totally. And I know there's actually, I believe there's even more like laws coming up behind that, due to different additives and stuff like that. I'm sure with these terps, there's, you know, not going to be any of those kinds of additives. But so coming from a lab testing background, I just feel like the more you add things in your steps, the more times you're touching the product throughout your steps, the more times that there's kind of area for weird things to happen. I'm a purist, so I'm more of the cannabis derived terpene mindset. But hey, I can't hate, because sometimes I'll try like a vape or a pre-roll and that stuff tastes good. So I don't know. I don't know. So I'm still up in the air. I got to do a little bit more taste testing, I think, before I can really make a decision on that. So check back with me in maybe like a month or so once I've done a little more testing.
All right. Yeah. Chris invited me out to their headquarters, and apparently they have some sensory equipment. They put it over your face, and you get to like fully experience terpenes and scents and stuff. So I don't know, some crazy scientific stuff that he said was really fire if you enjoy exploring cannabis flavors. So I'm looking forward to getting down to Portland, the Portland area, and checking that out. Next up, we have, you know, we covered this. Is not brand new news, but Selena Gomez had used the Stud and Glass Gravity Bong on her cooking show. My guy just chimed in, was like, did she really hit the gravity? So she did not hit the gravity bong, but she used it to smoke. It was really weird. So in cooking, you can put smoke on food or drinks to add a certain flavor. And so they put this like glass dome over this yogurt she's making, and then they run this tube in. So they run smoke in there to like infuse some smoke flavor in this yogurt. But in the gravity bong, they put in wood chips, like break up, like, I don't know, I'm not sure what kind of actual wood, but wood chips in it. And then they light it. It's just like a bong. You know, they turn the sun glass where it turns and the water goes out. And so that's what sucks the smoke into this thing, which absolutely makes sense being a longtime gravity bong consumer, or reformed gravity bong consumer, such as myself. You know, when you do that, right, all the smoke goes straight into there, and then ideally in your lungs. And it's perfect if you live in an apartment, because you can blow it straight out the window, and there's very little smoke that ever escapes out. So this process of smoking food, it definitely makes sense. They're not smoking weed, but they do acknowledge that it is a weed. I can't remember if they say gravity bong or weed bong. But it's just super crazy to see. Although it wasn't used in a cannabis form, you look at HBO Max cooking show with Selena Gomez, it doesn't get more pop culture than that. And they're using a cannabis device, you know, in a non-cannabis function, but it's sitting there right front and center on this mainstream show. So I thought that was I don't know, it was funny, it was unique, and it was definitely cool.
Shoot, they could have just asked me if they needed someone to smoke over the yogurt. I'll smoke over the yogurt and blow on it. Hey, like, give me some wood chips, sprinkle that. No, I'm just kidding. It's probably like cedar or hickory, but that's
Yeah.
super interesting. I've seen them at it was a Cannabar event, SoCal Cannabar event, where they had a smoke gun and they were infusing the drinks with different things, but it was the actual like kitchen tool. So
Mhm.
there's, yeah, like you said, there's different ways to infuse food, but shoot, they could have just asked me next time, be like, hey, Selena, I'll take the bong hits. I'll just tell me where to blow them. And you got yourself a deal.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd be smoking. You know, I don't know how a gravity bong makes its way on that set without somebody involved being somewhat close to cannabis. Again, you know, they might have wanted to originally talk a little bit more about it in relation to cannabis, and maybe the network, whoever put it, cut that stuff out. But the fact,
Right.
again, the fact that we see a device that is designed for cannabis sitting front and center in something mainstream, it definitely helps break the stigma, in my opinion, even if they're not talking about it to the extent that, you know, we might wish they were talking about
Hmm. Now I'm like,
it.
what can I use my dab rig or bong for that's different besides just like a vase?
I know.
Just
I was just watching. I was
experiment.
just watching how high the other day, and Redman's like, "Duh, ma, it's a vase. You put the it's a lampshade. You put the lamp on, and this is where you turn it on." Next up on news, again, not new news, but Snoop Dogg and Tsumo Snacks. Tsumo Snacks has been blowing up over this last year, but they connected on the Snazzle O's product. And Danny, I know you got some insight information there, but Tsumo Snacks is a really interesting edible company, taking a little bit more of the savory rather than the sweet route, providing kind of crunchy and salty cannabis infused snacks as opposed to the usual gummy chocolate or beverage. Kind of curious, I haven't had the Snazzles. Have you had them? What exactly are these products? What are they snacking like?
So I was so happy when I saw this on today's topics. I actually just started working for Tsumo Snacks, and it is
Hey.
so refreshing to be part of their team. So not only do they have a totally unique product so these are essentially chips. It's all your favorite kind of chips that we have redone and made them totally medicated. So we have, for example, the Snazzle O most closely resembles like your favorite kind of onion ring chip. I can't really say the name of that one, but we do have a fiery version and a normal version. Literally tastes like you bought it out of a vending machine, but it gets you high. Super, super fun. These are also great products because, for example, I was on the Sumo Snacks Instagram page and I saw someone using the fiery hot crunchers, which is kind of like a cheese cruncher. It's your favorite spicy hot, insert your name here, insert the chip name here. But they had actually ground those up and they did a breaded chicken sandwich using the ground up Sumo Snacks chips. It's been really great to partner with Snoop Dogg on that venture. He's just more of a onion kind of ring guy. He's not really a chip guy, apparently. But he is such a great spokesperson and he's involved with the process. He wants his snacks to taste good. Flavor is a huge mission and it's a huge value for Sumo Snacks. They actually have really lovely value and mission statements. We embrace flavor, and that is from the snacks actually tasting good to flavor in everything we do. We're such a diverse team. Everyone on the Sumo Snacks team has 8-9 years plus of cannabis experience. So we have staffed the team with full-on industry veterans, which you don't really see that anymore. You see people who are pulling in like, hey, this was CEO at Home Depot who knows nothing about weed, but they're going to be your boss. Like, this Sumo Snacks is not like that. They embrace community veterans and they embrace bold flavor. Who better to be a spokesperson than Snoop Dogg, someone so respected in the community? There's usually, there's a lot of like I've said again, there's a lot of weird tension, especially when a celebrity comes out with a brand. So this is not Snoop trying to have the bombest flower. This is Snoop trying to have a fun, inclusive product that you can try that's not going to scare you, be like overly strong. We have a 10 milligram bag version, single serving, and we have a 100 milligram version. And the fun thing is, it's not like a gummy where you eat like 5 gummies and then you're freaking 50 milligrams deep. This is, you can eat a bunch of the chips and still have fun. You could be snacking on that bag all day. So I think it's a really, really fun product. Stay tuned for updates. We're actually doing some really fun parties and things like that with Snoop later on. So I'm really, really excited for all of the fun updates to come. But Sumo Snacks, get your bag, go try them out. They're really inexpensive. The little bags generally go for like $5 or something. So they're super inexpensive. Try out that salty snack. Get that flavor goodness. Try Sumo Snacks. It's a tsunami of flavor, baby.
I dig it. And it's good. It's good to hear. If Snoop's going to partner, that's a great partner, obviously, for the cannabis industry. But going that edible route, and something packaged like that could easily be that CPG outside of cannabis. So I didn't know that. It's definitely refreshing to hear that the team is very much with the shits when it comes to understanding cannabis and being a part of the culture and the industry. I think it's a perfect storm when you have a product that is positioned that can speak to that community because it comes from that community, but it's not necessarily, turning off the other community because it really looks like, your typical snack, right? Your typical CPG. Next cannabis news, we have a review. The link is in the description for Betty's Eddies Strawberry Chew. We were out in Massachusetts, tried some of the Betty's Eddies from Mary Med. who I just saw. I think their CEO just passed today. So condolences out to their family and his personal family for that. We did the review of the Betty's Eddie Strawberry Chew out there, THC infused. It's like a taffy. They had a couple different flavors. The strawberry one that I believe Joey reviewed that's the link in there. And then I think I reviewed the cherry one, which both of them scored really, really high on our taste test reviews while we were out in Massachusetts. A great product. I toured their facility last year and got to see where they're made. Great team, great product. Definitely check those out if you're in the Massachusetts market. And again, condolences out to their team. Moving on into the music realm, Big Jones, my guy Big Jones from the Seattle area out here, just dropped a new track with Mafi D. Mafi D's been in the conversation a couple weeks as of late on the morning joint because he's staying really active. He dropped an album a couple weeks ago we featured, but this one he's being featured. So Big Jones dropped the album Superb, which made it on the Apple Music charts as an independent artist. I think he charted on Apple Music for about a week, and I think he cracked the top 10, which is a lot, which is really well for a local Seattle artist that's not signed to a deal, does not have a team, does not have an infrastructure, does not have a large scale budget behind him. And I think his last 2 albums actually charted. Jones is a great dude. And this song Busy is definitely it's a solid vibe. It's one of my favorite songs off the album. It's got some of the emo guitar stuff, a la like Juice WRLD and some of that stuff that's popping right now. But, we're from Seattle, so we really, we come from that grunge stuff. So I'm not really giving him credit for taking off the Juice WRLD. I'm saying it's all the way Seattle going off that grunge vibe. So it's definitely a dope little video directed by the homie Ghost Boy. But, it's a dope vibe. Check that out. Next, it's not necessarily music, but Nyjah Huston dropped 2 insane skate parts in 1 month, man. Thrasher, Shine On, and then the Nike SB Need That. Thrasher came out, and then 3 weeks later, the Nike SB part came out. And the Thrasher part was 6 minutes. The Nike part was 12 minutes. I grew up skateboarding, and what it takes to put together a 3-minute part is a lot of work. And so to see somebody do a 6-minute part and a 12-minute part, basically 18 minutes of skating within a month release. So it's probably filmed over the last year or so, but that is a lot. And so to be able to put enough tricks and degree of difficulty and differentiation, you can't just be doing the same thing or the same obstacles. That's a lot. And Nyjah is, for the skate fans out there, I mean, he is the best skater in the world right now. And he goes absolutely just gnarly, man. Just massive rails, massive stair sets, a lot of stuff that would end someone's career or life that he's just kind of effortlessly doing. I like the Nike part because they show quite a few crashes. So you get to see like, okay, damn, clearly to the person that doesn't understand, like he's not landing all this stuff one try. But, usually when you watch a skate video, the banger is the last trick. As skating's progressed, they kind of tease you where you see a banger, you're like, oh damn, part's over, and you're like, oh shit, he's going even bigger this next one, and they kind of string you along. If you watch the Nike SB, Nyjah's part is 12 minutes. There's about 7 minutes where you're like, okay, they can't go any bigger. That's the end, and he just keeps progressively taking it more and more. It was absolutely nuts. I don't know, Danny, if you're much of a skater, if you caught any of this stuff, but this shit it was nuts, man.
I have not seen the videos. Unfortunately, I got to go check those out. But I mean, skate culture and cannabis culture definitely goes hand in hand. I have my I almost want to go walk my computer over there. I have my skateboard hanging up in my hallway. I did grip tape. I'm on some grip tape for Mob Grip back in the day. So definitely a special place in my heart for the skater community. It would be dope if there was like some sort of ramp jam, like cannabis event, but hey, now my wheels are turning on so many of these things. How do I get in touch with Selena to smoke the joint over her food? How do I get to the Ramp Jam skate event?
Maybe Skate Mafia down there in San Diego. I think they actually have a cannabis brand, or I know they're like, whether it's a Skate Mafia cannabis brand or they're involved. I know there's something going on there. I know the homie Justin, I think those are his guys, and was telling me something. I can't remember. Forgive me. I cannot remember, but I know there's some sort of tie, and they do a lot of those little pop-up ramps down in San Diego and just do the crazy sessions. I see it on Instagram, man. So you're absolutely right. I mean, skate culture and cannabis culture really go hand in hand, especially when you think of mainstream cannabis culture. You think of California, surfing, skating, graffiti, hip hop. You know, all these things are kind of individual subcultures, but definitely have a special relationship with cannabis. Moving on to more music news, XXL dropped a list of the rappers with the most guest verses from Jay-Z. And so Jay-Z was on an interview on with Kevin Hart on his Heart to Heart show, and Kevin Hart was asking him, how do you approach features? You know, you don't really do a lot of songs with people. You don't really, work with people on that. Rappers brag about how much they get paid in songs. How much do you charge and how do you approach that? And Jay-Z I believe his answer was like, I don't charge, like I don't ask to be on songs. People ask me, obviously, when you're the greatest of all time, a lot of people ask you. But he said he doesn't charge. When some rappers are out here bragging about making 100,000, 500,000 for a feature, Jay-Z is in the 500,000 to probably million level worth for his feature. But he came out and said he doesn't charge. And I think Drake said a similar thing. And so I think when an artist gets to that level, from being authentic and just who they are, it's about doing the music that they want to do and not about making the bag. Obviously, Jay-Z's a billionaire, so he doesn't need to be nickel and diamond for features out here. He just kind of does the music he wants. But, it's kind of surprising looking at this list, like Foxy Brown, who I thought, Jay and her collaborated a lot. And I think Foxy was on a lot of Jay songs, but Jay was only on 2 of hers. Biggie, I know obviously he passed early on, but like Jay was only on 2 songs with Biggie, 2 songs with DMX, 2 songs with Ja Rule. And for those that don't know, DMX, Ja Rule, and Jay-Z were actually supposed to form a group in the early 2000s. I know those 3 went on tour as the first national tour with no R&B support. Leading up to that, it was always rappers. They had to team up with R&B to make them more commercially acceptable. Those 3 guys were like the first mainstream no R&B rap tour of all time, and they're actually supposed to be in a group. Somehow that didn't happen. But it's interesting going down this list. Some of the big ones, which are kind of unsurprising. Jay-Z has been featured on 5 Jeezy songs. All of those are pretty tight. Drake, he's done 5. Kanye West, he's done 6. This is not including their collaborative albums or Kanye being featured on Jay-Z, just Jay-Z features on their songs. 6 with Kanye, 6 with Rick Ross. Man, Rick Ross, people have different opinions on him, but the Rick Ross and Jay-Z songs do not miss. They are, if you look at these, Hustlin' Remix, Maybach Music, the first one, Freemason, 3 Kings, Devil is Alive, Moving Bass. Those are some hitting songs, man. Khaled was at 6, Beanie Siegel 7, Jay Electronica 8, because they did a collaboration album, but that's weird how they categorize that. And then Memphis Bleek 11, big fan of the Rockefeller. And Memphis Bleek is a perfect example, even if you're just not a music fan and a cannabis fan, of just understanding, even if you team up with the biggest and best, it doesn't always mean you will be the biggest and best. Jay-Z tried to push Memphis Bleek, didn't try, but Jay-Z pushed Memphis Bleek as like, this is, if you like me, you need to like this guy. He really propped him up, signed him to a label. Memphis Bleek had commercial success. I'm not trying to shit on that, but he never kind of grew into the artist that you think you would grow into with that heavy of a cosign and a platform for Jay-Z. So it's just safe to say, whether you're in cannabis, whether you're in weed, some people like, if I just had a cosign, if these people just put me on, man, Jay-Z can't even force some people to get put on sometimes, man. So it's not always about the cosign and the platform. Did you take a look at this list, Danny? You big Ho fan?
So I did take a look at this list, and I was actually kind of surprised. There was some people I thought he had more songs with, but they only have like 2 songs together. But I respect that so much, that he only chooses to do the songs that are good, or the songs that, resonate with him. I feel like that's why, in the music industry now, you'll see some weird like Dua Lipa with the baby, like, so I just think this is so much more authentic, and I respect that. I definitely do.
It stays, yeah. It's part of the legacy, man. It's to be reserved as the best. You can't be pay to play, man. You got to do what you feel. It's got to be authentic. There's a lot of lessons we can learn. Again, whether you're a cannabis person, you don't really care about hip hop. There's a lot of lessons you can learn from Jay-Z. I've had a couple CEOs in the cannabis industry come on our podcast, and a couple of them have really said that Jay-Z inspired them to get into business and be an entrepreneur, and listening to his music has been one of the biggest inspirations and motivators and pushers for them to do their business and do it how they do. So you could find a lot, whether you're dissecting his lyrics or just dissecting how that man moves. You can learn a lot of business. Last up to round up the music news is Apple Music is working on loading this karaoke sing function that goes through lyrics. And it's been crazy over these last few years. Like Genius was the one that I really knew branded itself around putting content out, dissecting artist lyrics, but lyrics are becoming such a big thing. There's a lot of conversation and news around this. People want to sing stuff. And it's funny when you look at, I just saw Metro Boomin was talking about how, I can't remember if it was Takeoff or Offset, one of their songs that they put out, some people, one of the lyrics companies like messed up his lyrics. And if you read the lyrics and listened to the song, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's what he said. And he came out and was like, that's not what he said, man. This is actually what he said. And so some of these Southern guys who slur their words and might say some slang that people aren't familiar with, sometimes in your head, and I know I'm guilty of this, I'll sing something and my wife will be like, yo, did you just say this? And I'm like, yeah, that's what it says. And she's like, no, it's not. Sometimes our heads hear something one way and it's not. And that doesn't just apply for rap music, but it's interesting to see kind of Apple and more of these people double down on understanding lyrics.
Yeah, this one's interesting to me because I am quite a sing-along fan. And I know on Apple Music already, if you like click on the song, you can see some of the lyrics, but it's kind of a more manual process. It's not like, highlighting the lyrics like a karaoke thing. But sounds like when this goes live, then we got to have a morning joint karaoke battle. Hey,
It's not,
put
I'm
your
not going to be
comments.
involved.
Who's gonna win? Is it gonna be me or Mick?
You might win by default, man. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone tuning in. We're running a little bit late today, but this is I think the 44th episode of the Morning Joint. We're out here every Monday we usually start between 9:30, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard. The newsletter goes out 9 a.m. Pacific Standard every Monday. If you're not subscribed, reach out to us, info@respectmyregion.com. We'll make sure you get subscribed there. We've got some new merch on the site, so check that out. Moving quite a bit of units last week, and more stuff coming. Appreciate you guys hanging out, and thank you, Dani, for chopping it up with me this morning.
Of course. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.